All right, everyone, here's a little video going over the homework for this evening. And this should be review, although I'm not sure how far you guys got last year. And it's a little review over exponential relationships. If you remember an exponential relationship formula, will look something like y is equal to your starting value A times 1 plus or minus your rate. So you're either getting bigger or getting smaller, right, by a certain rate to the power of x. And I always remember exponential equations, the x is in the exponent. That's what makes it an exponential relationship, because later on this year, we're going to be talking about quadratic relationships, which have an exponent, right? It would be x squared. But exponential relationships, you can always tell because the x is actually in the exponent, right? To the power of x. So this question is talking about, and then we can go back and do the notes for this. This question is talking about the cost of a large flat screen television. Actually, I would love to buy a television. I do not have one right now, so maybe this will help me. But it's decreasing by 20% per year. So that's cool. That means they're not as expensive as when they first started. So what is the multiplier? And if you remember, the multiplier is going to be the number that we put in here. That's the number we're multiplying by each time. So let's put in as many numbers as we can. So if it's decreasing by 20%, we are going to have y equals a. Decreasing, that word means subtracting. So we're going to use the subtracting piece of this. 1 minus, and then don't forget, whenever we use a percent, we have to change it to a decimal. Percent change to decimal. And the way I always remember how to change it is I think about the word percent. It has this word cent in it. And I always think, how would I write the percent as cents, as dollars, right? So 20%, how would I write 20 cents? It would be like this, right? $0.20. It would be 0.20. If you speak Spanish, percent I'm going to spell this wrong, so you can tell me later that I spelled it wrong, but it should be like por ciento, right? Which is out of 100. So 20 cents would be 20 in the hundredths spot, right? So it's almost a little bit easier to remember if you speak Spanish, or maybe even any like Romance language. Maybe Italian's the same way. So how do I write? I have to put in there, I am subtracting the rate, okay? Because we're decreasing, so it's going to be I still have erase on. It's going to be 0.20. You don't have to have that 0 afterwards, but we'll just keep it in there so it looks like 20. But let's actually do the math for this, right? 1 minus 0.20 is actually 0.8, right? This is actually 0.8. And what that means is if the cost of a flat screen is decreasing by 20% per year, that means it's actually worth 80% of what it was. And that's the multiplier we are looking at. You could put a 0 there if you want to realize that it's 80. So when it's asking what is the multiplier, we're going to put 0.8, or you could do 0.80. That's the number we're going to multiply by each time. Okay. The second question says, if a 50-inch flat screen now costs $1,200, what will it cost in 3 years? So this, we're going to have to substitute some numbers in. this 1200 is our starting value. We're going to put that in for A. So let's define some of our variables. Y is going to be the number of dollars, and A is our starting value. So if we are starting with 1200, we are going to substitute, my dog's making so much noise. Substitute in 1200 for A times 0.8, and our X is 3 because our X variable stands for the number of years. Okay. So if we want to know how much this is going to cost in 3 years, we substitute 3 in for X. So if we just put this into the calculator, okay, just like this. And remember, if you're doing it by hand, you need to do that exponent first order of operations, right? But you can type it into the calculator as 1200 parenthesis 0.8 parenthesis to the power, and it's that caret to the power of 3 years. Enter. So in 3 years, it is going to cost only $614.40. So B is, well, let's see. Let's write it as a complete sentence. In 3 years, the TV will cost $614, and what was it? 40 cents. Using that same rate, what did it cost 2 years ago? Ooh, that's a good question. Using this same rate, what did it cost 2 years ago? So the question is, we want to know what it cost 2 years ago, which means if we are sorry, you guys, I have to do something before I finish this. Okay, sorry, you guys. So in this case, what we want to do, if right now, instead of decreasing by 20%, we want it to be increasing by 20% because we want to know what it was 2 years ago. If right now it's 1200, 2 years ago, we were going to do the 1 plus 0.2 to the power of 2. Okay. So 1200 times 1.2, 20% increase 2 years ago. And I'm just going to put that in the calculator. Oh, you know what I can do? I'm just going to grab what I had and change a few things. We're going to change the 0.8 to 1.2. And then it's going to be to the power of 2. So 2 years ago, it would have been $1,728. $1,728. Okay. Write the equation of a function to model the situation. We just did. Don't worry, we just did. If you would have rather have used a table to figure this out, we would say, you could say now our TV is $1,200. Okay. And if we multiply that by 0.8, that would give us next year, right? So next year is going to be 1,200 times 0.8. $960. Okay, so this is now, this is next year, and then the year after would be 960 times 0.8, 768. Okay, and the now we would put 0 years. The next year would be 1 year later. The year after that would be 2 years later. And then the year after that would be 768 times 0.8. Are you guys looking at your phones every time my phone goes off? 614.4, which is exactly what we had, right? So we multiplied each times 0.8 times 0.8. And then to go backwards, well, what's the inverse of multiplying by 0.8? Let's see if this works. I didn't think this through actually. If we started with 1,200 and divide it by 0.8, 1,500 divided by 0.8, 1870. So it doesn't work that way. Ignore that last piece of information that I gave you, and we can talk about that later. But we did answer all of these questions. Thank you for paying attention.